Before you take your next sip of morning coffee, I want you to hear something most people over 50 never get told. Because what you're about to learn might explain why your sleep is lighter than it used to be, why your heart sometimes feels different after coffee, and why that harmless morning cup may not be as harmless as you think. And no, this is not about scaring you. It's about understanding your body at a level most people never reach. Because once you understand this, you will never look at coffee the same way again. I'm Dr. Richard, and if you are over 50, this might be one of the most important health conversations you watch this year. Now let's begin. For decades, coffee was placed in a very simple box: good or bad, healthy or harmful, safe or dangerous. And for years, most people were told the same thing. Coffee increases blood pressure, stresses the heart, and should be limited, especially as you age. So naturally, millions of people over 50 either cut it completely or started drinking it with guilt. But then something changed. Large, long-term studies involving hundreds of thousands of people started showing something unexpected. Moderate coffee drinkers were not at higher risk of heart disease. In fact, in many cases, they showed equal or even slightly lower risk of certain cardiovascular conditions. Now pause for a second, because this is where most people get confused. They think that means coffee is healthy, but that is not what the data actually says. It says something more important. Coffee is not simply good or bad. It depends on how your body responds to it, and after 50, your body response changes. Aging is not just about wrinkles or slower movement. Inside your body, three major systems begin to shift. First, your blood vessels slowly become less flexible. Second, your nervous system becomes more sensitive to stimulation. Third, your sleep becomes lighter and less deep. Now combine those three changes, and suddenly, the same cup of coffee you drank at 30 behaves differently at 55. Not because coffee changed, but because you changed. And that is where most people miss the real story. Let's go inside the body for a moment. Coffee contains caffeine. Caffeine works by blocking a brain chemical called adenosine. Adenosine is what builds up during the day and tells your body, you are tired, slow down, rest now. When caffeine blocks it, your brain feels alert. But here's what most people don't realize. Adenosine is not just about sleep. It also helps relax blood vessels, stabilize heart rhythm, and calm the nervous system. So when caffeine blocks adenosine, you don't just feel awake. You get a mild stimulation across your cardiovascular system. That can cause slightly faster heart rate, mild tightening of blood vessels, and a small temporary rise in blood pressure. Now, in a younger body, this is usually well tolerated, but after 50, the system is more sensitive, so the same effect becomes more noticeable. Not dangerous in most people, but noticeable. And noticeable is where awareness begins. Here is the interesting part. Your body is intelligent. With regular coffee use, you develop tolerance. That means your brain reduces its reaction to caffeine over time. So the jittery feeling reduces, the alertness becomes smoother, the heart response becomes less dramatic. But here is the problem. Tolerance is not complete protection. Because while your brain adapts, your sleep system does not fully adapt in the same way. And this is where the real issue begins. The real problem is not your morning coffee. It is what happens hours later. Caffeine stays in your system for a long time, and after 50, your body clears it more slowly. So even if you drink coffee at 9 a.m., it can still be active in your system well into the afternoon. Even small amounts of caffeine can reduce deep sleep quality. And deep sleep is not optional. It is the phase where your body repairs blood vessels, lowers blood pressure naturally, balances hormones, and resets cardiovascular stress. If that system is even slightly disrupted, your body carries that load forward. Not immediately, but over time. Now let's connect the biology. When deep sleep is reduced, your body increases cortisol. Cortisol is your stress hormone. Short term, it is helpful. Long-term elevation leads to higher blood pressure, increased inflammation in arteries, reduced insulin sensitivity, and slower heart recovery. Now step back and see the pattern. Coffee is not directly damaging the heart, but if it disrupts sleep, it indirectly affects the system that protects the heart, and that distinction is everything. Now let's look at what large studies actually show. Moderate coffee intake, about 1 to 3 cups per day, is generally not associated with increased cardiovascular disease risk in most adults. Some studies even show associations with lower risk of heart failure, lower risk of stroke in certain groups, and reduced overall mortality. One possible reason is compounds called polyphenols. These are natural plant chemicals in coffee that act as antioxidants. They help reduce oxidative stress, and oxidative stress is one of the key drivers of aging in blood vessels. It contributes to artery stiffness, inflammation, and long-term damage. So coffee is not just a stimulant, it is also a biologically active compound with potential protective effects. But context matters more than chemistry alone. There are certain situations where coffee is more likely to cause issues. First, sleep sensitivity. Even if you fall asleep easily, deep sleep may still be reduced. Second, blood pressure sensitivity, especially if you already have hypertension. Third, anxiety sensitivity, because the nervous system becomes more reactive with age. Fourth, medication interactions, especially with heart and thyroid medications. And fifth, reduced recovery capacity, because sleep becomes more critical for repair. Now listen carefully, because this is the turning point. It is not how much coffee people drink, it is when they drink it. Late-day caffeine is one of the most common hidden disruptors of sleep. And because the effects are subtle, people don't connect the cause and effect. They just feel slightly tired in the morning, slightly dependent on coffee, slightly less refreshed, and the cycle continues. Over months and years, this can slowly contribute to chronic fatigue, elevated stress hormones, and cardiovascular strain. Not dramatically, but silently. And silently is how most health issues begin. Based on current medical evidence, here is the balanced view. 1 to 3 cups per day is generally safe for most adults over 50. Morning coffee is best for heart and sleep health. Avoid caffeine in late afternoon and evening. Monitor your personal blood pressure response. Reduce added sugar when possible. And consider decaf if you are sensitive. Decaf still contains beneficial plant compounds, without strong stimulation. So here is the real truth. Coffee is not good or bad, safe or dangerous, healthy or unhealthy. It is a biologically active substance interacting with a changing body. And after 50, that interaction becomes more dependent on timing, sleep quality, sensitivity, and cardiovascular health, not just the number of cups. If you remember only one thing from this entire video, remember this. Your morning coffee is not the problem, but your body is no longer the same body it was 20 years ago. And once you understand that, you stop guessing and start making smarter decisions based on biology, not habit. Now I'd like to hear from you. Have you noticed coffee affecting your sleep, energy, or heart differently as you've gotten older? Tell me in the comments below. And if you found this helpful, like this video, subscribe for more evidence-based health insights, and share it with someone over 50 who still believes coffee is either completely harmless or completely dangerous. Because the truth, as you now know, is far more powerful when you understand it correctly.